Today on the Topping Show, Joy Reid says Canada can defeat the United States in a war. Attacks against Tesla vehicles intensify all over the world. A record number of people are joining the U.S. military under the leadership of Pete Hegseth as well as Donald Trump. And Cadillac might kill the CT4 and CT5 V Blackwing and maybe make an EV. Lastly, Segway has yet another recall where the scooters might break. All of that and much more on the Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of the Topping Show is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency IT security. Heck, I see their founder at least twice a day. Guys say he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, see, that's a joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, you can reach out to the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also, still giving away a free Flamethrower with every IT purchase, and it does come with a fun Picatinny rail adapter, so you can mount it to any standard AR-15, like all awesome accessories can be. Go to toppingtechnologies.com and click the Flamethrower button to learn more and see me shoot a Flamethrower. Lastly, trying to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you can click that button and tell your friends, I would greatly appreciate it. Now, going over to the business part podcast, you have Cadillac saying they might just kill their iconic CT4, CT5 V Blackwing because there's no confirmation in sight they will continue to exist, which would be a shame because of everything GM makes, that's the best thing they make, bar none. Granted, that bar is pretty damn low these days, but nevertheless, a marvel of engineering, hand-built in Michigan. I mean, it's one of the few good, really cool things to make. And of course, you know me, it comes with a stick shift option, which I would argue should be every vehicle by default. But with General Motors, of all the cars they own, all the brands they have, there's like two vehicles left with a stick shift. The CT4V and the CT5V. Now, granted, you bought the Blackwing edition because that's the one that's made for the track and really the enthusiast, but I partially digress. This comes with thanks to Brian Hurd, who's a writer at thedrive.com. And here you can see the beautiful Cadillac CT5 V Blackwing, which that's the larger one that comes with a V8, which is great. If it rhymes, it has to be true. The CT4 V Blackwing comes with a twin-turbo V6, both with great, ginormous Brembo brakes. I think there's even a carbon ceramic edition for the rotors. Like, as my grandpa would say if you're alive, the bee's knees. Now, you know me, I wish that would be a fun green color. Doesn't look too bad in, what was that, probably ruby red. Granted, their marketing department has some fancy term I can't probably think of off the top of my head to name that actual paint, but I partially digress. He says, quote, Cadillac still has no plans for gas-powered CT4, CT5 replacements report. Instead, Cadillac's next sedans are rumored to be, oh, sorry, I almost threw up, all electric powertrains, while the larger ones might compare to the discontinued CT6 in size, which, so disappointing. Again, this is the last sports car they really make. The Corvette is automatic only. They also have a hybrid edition for all 5 people who really want that. I mean, if you want a stick shift with a V8, this is it, folks. This is the last GM product. And I'm a little biased. I've only had the opportunity to drive the CT4 V Blackwing, which one of my friends got, and it was so much fun. It is, I mean, everything about that, even the interior is nice, which for decades, GM interior have been probably on the same quality as a McDonald's toy in terms of plastic materials and build quality, if we're being honest. But it is one of the best things ever made. I love driving that thing. I mean, I actually think I'm more hurt that he sold the car than he is himself. I'm like, come on, Keenan, how do you sell your CT4V Blackwing? You just got PPF'd. It looks amazing. And obviously, he got the stick shift. But I partially digress. I'll go back into the comments, or more accurately, the article in and of itself. Now, they say, quote, despite pumping the brakes on the electrification shift, General Motors is sticking to its plan to sunset all internal combustion Cadillac CT4, CT5 sedans after this generation. Terrible, Mary Barra, their CEO. An all-electric 4-door model remain on the table, but there's no gasoline brain replacement either once the sales of the existing models have dried up per GM Authority, which is probably one of the best websites when it comes to insider information about General Motors. They say, quote, Cadillac has made the plan with the launch of the Blackwing versions of the the 2022 CT4V and CT5V Blackwing that they would mark the final chapter of the brand's internal combustion performance story. Technically, that left the door open for non-performance models to carry the banner after the 2 sports sedans are retired, but that's some admittedly narrow wiggle room. Both nameplates are sticking around for the 2026 model year, but beyond that, the future looks murky, which, even from the rear, it does look pretty good. That's the CT5V Blackwing, which again is it's a lot larger than the CT4V Blackwing, but again, because of the V8 in all of its glory. And for a sedan, it looks pretty damn nice. I'm more of a coupe guy myself, but if I had to get a sedan, and I had the money for it, oh yeah, I'd get a CT5 V Blackwing. I mean, that's a great track toy and a grocery getter. They say, apart from the sleek, Cadillac's electrification efforts have paralleled the industry's pivot towards longer, roomier vehicles, but this report suggests that there's some hopes for folks who actually want low-slung performance EV. GM has carved out space within its platform hierarchy for cars with low seating position. 2 of them are reportedly already in development at Cadillac, while they would match up performing with the CT4 and CT5. Slow sales from the former already cost the mid-cycle refresh that boost the CT5's interior for 2025. The likelihood of an actual replacement for that compact sedan, even with electric power, appears to be low. Which is really sad. They say, but the continuance of the second model is interesting, especially the size does line up with the now discontinued CT6. GM Authority source claims, could this represent a coupe sedan pairing? Or perhaps a return of a larger nameplate? Either way, there's one thing that can be certain at this point. It won't be powered at least exclusively by gasoline, or as the Europeans would call petrol. Which is a shame for anyone who likes reliability or cars that last more than 10 years. You know, I like cars that last a quarter century or longer myself, so I like gasoline engines personally. Also, bob down the street and your independent mechanic can repair it, unlike electric vehicles, which is just a glorified smartphone on wheels that inevitably will break, and you only have one person that can fix it. Now, one of the first responses comes from Adam VIP, who says, quote, everyone loves the current version, and they jacked up the price this year. If I were GM, I would be telling everyone that there's not going to be a future gas version to get people to pay for them now. Now, DH says, 2 things kept me from purchasing. 1, lack of an all-wheel drive paired with a manual transmission, and 2, the outrageous dealer markups. Yep. I could get over the first, but not the second obstacle. I'm still rocking my 2016 340 X-Drive because it has a manual. I was planning on ordering an M3 this year, but after reviewing the iDrive 9 version, I scrapped that plan. The Caddy is a nice option, but I refuse to play the markup, which, yeah, if I had $1 for every time a dealership killed a good car, I mean, it couldn't retire, but I could at least get a used Honda probably. It's one of those things where it is so frustrating when the dealerships kill it with the outrageous markups. One of the most infamous examples in my lifetime would be the Ford Focus RS, which is an all-wheel drive, stick-shift only, turbocharged inline-4 hot hatch from Ford. And it was a great rally car. A lot of people loved it. Unfortunately, the dealers roped it off, treated it like it was a Lamborghini, wouldn't let you drive it. And they marked it up by 15 to 25 grand over MSRP. And again, the people who are most likely to buy a Ford Focus RS were the youth who don't have as much disposable income. So they kind of destroyed the whole idea. And of course, Ford said, wait, this car isn't selling. We should not, sell it anymore. Which again, I would argue is mainly because the dealers being greedy and doing outrageous markups. The same can be said of the Cadillac CT4 V Blackwing and CT5 V Blackwing. Now, I know when I look at the window shopping these days and kind of showing my age, I still use cars.com because I've been window shopping on that since I was a teenager. I mean, yeah, some of these dealerships are asking 15, 20 grand over MSRP. And they're already pretty pricey cars. If I had the resource allocation or the funds, I would buy one. But I mean, the CT5 V Blackwing, if you configure it properly, or as I would say, for the track spec, list price is already $116,000, $125,000. Again, $125,000 before the extortion tax of paying to register the vehicle and pay sales tax on it, and the gas guzzler tax on that crap. It's already pretty expensive. Now, the CT4 V Blackwing, I believe that's $78,000 or $80,000 to start, which again is a lot of money. That's getting into Porsche money. But the dealerships are asking even more. So, I mean, shoot, bang for your buck. I mean, I'm a big fan of buying certified used or just buy used to have it certified or checked out by your local mechanic that you trust. That way you don't have to eat the depreciation so much. But even then, they're still holding their values pretty good. The CT4s depreciate a little bit more. So you can get those used for 50 to 60 in pretty good condition. And man, I really wish you'd get, I mean, it's great that they have a 50% take rate for a stick shift. That's really rare in automobiles these days. I mean, I think that's one of the highest ones up there in terms of the actual take rate of people who prefer automatic versus stick shift. And again, I think it's important to have Halo car. Again, these are very low volume units. I think they sold less than 2,000 of these last year. I'm trying to pull up. Let's see here. One of these comments have some of the statistics. So they say that Cadillac CT4 was sold in 2024. They sold 6,208. CT5 they sold 14,861. So again, this is also the higher trim. So it's not a high volume unit for them. But to me, it shows that they're passionate about racing, which, again, they're just getting to F1. Why would you kill the coolest track toy you make? I've seen a couple Corvettes at the track. Believe it or not, I've seen a couple Caddies as well, in terms of the Blackwing trim line. But again, it's going to be Cadillac F1. Why would you kill the coolest Cadillac you make? that just blows my mind. And again, this is just them saying we don't have they're saying, hey, we don't have any plans to continue it. They're not officially saying it's being, killed. Maybe it'll be maybe, again, GM isn't the smartest company, but maybe GM will actually listen to the consumers like Porsche, and they say, hey, 50% of this car is bought with a stick shift. They love the gas engine. Why not keep making it just for a Halo car? Because again, the average person will just get the CT4, CT5 base model. I know that in terms of the volume of sales, but I really hope they keep it around. It'd be great for, again, them getting to F1 to really show they care about drivers and really the driving experience and the track experience. So we'll see what they do. Again, I try to be foolish or perhaps a hopeless optimistic, some might say, but GM has such a long track record, pun moderately intended, of bad decisions and killing products, like the Camaro that was also killed. I don't know if I were Magic 8 Ball and asked, do you think the Cadillac CT5 V Blackwing will be around with the gas engine in a couple of years? I can't but think the Magic 8 Ball would say, outlook, not so good. And let me know, have you seen these on the street? I see them at the track every once in a while for the circuit tracks I go to. In terms of the street, I've seen a couple of the Blackwings, and it always makes me smile, especially when I walk past them on the street and I see it's got a stick shift. I'm like, that's cool. It's literally less than 2% of cars in North America. For me, it's like an Easter egg when I see it on the street. But let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Going over to sorry, I'm not feeling the best today. Going over to the cultural part of the podcast, you have Joy Reid saying the United States would lose a war to Canada, which they're such a joke of the country. I refuse to pronounce their name properly to just further give them a slight or disrespect those totalitarian a-holes who run Canada. Remember, you have no right of free speech in Canada. You have no right to defend yourself or the Second Amendment in Canada. Their GDP is rudimentary to say the least, and they contribute basically nothing to society except maple syrup, hockey players, Pamela Anderson, and what else? They did make the Camaro over there in the Charger. That's about that lists all the contributions of Canada throughout the years, as well as BlackBerry. They got that tech company, which still technically does exist. They have about 5 clients left buying their software. But yeah, saying that Canada would beat America in a war. I mean, even the United States, hypothetically speaking, even if we had no military, just the citizens of Texas could kick the ass of Canada. Their jet fighters alone are from the 80s. They invest nothing to their military. Say what you want about the U.S. military-industrial complex. There's a reason the top defense contractors on the planet, both people as well as machines and companies, they're all headquartered in here. Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, all L3 Harris, all the big boys, all in the land of the free. Yeah, Canada would lose that war. So it would be hilariously comical. For a second, I thought Joy Reid was trying to be a stand-up comedian. Because, again, this is very funny, but it looks like she's actually serious. The only person less intellectually on par with Joy Reid, she did find someone who makes her look smart in comparison, perhaps, Don Lemon, which, at least he does have a funny, goofy shirt that says Lemon Nation. So at least he's leaning into the pun. I appreciate that. Lemon is a very silly name. It's almost as silly as a name like Topping. Oh, wait. I partially digress, but this comes with thanks to End Wokeness, and he says, quote, Joy Reid predicts that America will go to war with Canada and lose. Oh. Joy Reid and Don Lemon, a duo. They should do a daily show together. Their intellect maybe is on par with another, as well as their fashion. He's wearing a sweater, and she's wearing a t-shirt. You're supposed to be a fancy, journalist. At least he's clean-shaven. He's done something right. He maybe took a shower, I suppose. But nevertheless.
Grampy Trump, let's talk. First of all.
And people say my accent is hilarious. All right.
You can't make Canada the 51st state without going to war with them.
Yes, we can. I'd buy it on the cheap. It's for sale. I give them a couple turnips. And what else would Canadians like? I give them some American Vermont maple syrup. It's the best. Better than theirs, actually. I'm pretty sure Trump had that as a public statement. Probably not, but.
And let me explain how that happened, how that worked out the last time we tried to go to war with Canada. They burned the White House to the ground in 1814 and won the war.
We've had pent-up rage ever since, just building, compounding interest like a good savings account over time, ready to strike back.
Canada beat us in the War of 1812. They probably like their chances against us. We're not going to beat them in a war because we have never been able to do that. You'd have to occupy a country that is equivalent of the size of the United States, in which the top 2/3 of it is uninhabited, frozen.
Which means we only need to take realistically 2 to 3 cities. Sorry, shitties. So that actually would be a military advantage if most of it is desolate wasteland. Well, we only have to concentrate on a couple areas. And you're saying that like it's a bad thing? Well, that might be a silver lining, tactically speaking. Has she never played the brilliant game of Risk? I don't think so. Or Age of Empires 2? Probably not.
Forest land that touches the Arctic. You know how that worked out when the Nazis tried that with Russia, which is the equivalent of Canada on that part of the world?
Definitely not.
We gonna lose. We don't have enough troops to occupy. They are a country of 39 million people.
39 million people who are unarmed by their government. And let's be honest, a lot of those good Canadians would love to become Americans. Imagine that. You get freedom of speech and freedom to defend yourself. And you don't not taxed to death. I can't but think a lot of Canadians would like the United States to adopt them.
Who have about as many guns per capita as we do.
What'd you say at the last part?
Guns per capita as we do.
No, they definitely don't. They also disarm their citizens. And apologies, I don't feel the best health-wise today. I'm actually starting a little bit more than usual. With some people would argue that's impossible. Technically, statistically speaking, it is. But it's been 554 episodes. Haven't missed a single day. Not starting now. Now, I just did a quick search on Grok, and I said, let's see. In terms of defense contractors and innovation, who's headquartered in Canada? They have, I think, one rudimentary company. I say it because the first one's Lockheed Martin, Canada. Where's Lockheed Martin famously headquarters? America. They make the F-35 and pretty much every aerospace vehicle the U.S. military purchases. Who else? Oh, yeah, General Dynamics in Canada. Where are they headquartered globally? Oh, yeah, America. They make a lot of tanks, best known for that. They have CAE, so they have one company. They make simulations. Have fun with that, Canada. They also have Bombardier. That is the one they have. Though I would argue our planes are a lot better. They also have, let's see, Raytheon, Canada. Let's see, where are they globally headquartered? Oh, yeah, here. I bet for the guys who played Call of Duty growing up, they're probably best known for making the Javelin missile. They've recently merged with another giant missile company. It eludes me at the moment. But again, also headquartered and mostly manufactured in America. They have Thales, Canada. They make control units, electronics. All right. L3 Harris. Where are they headquartered globally? America. Where do they make most of their stuff? America. Okay. You guys seen a pattern here? General Dynamics Ordnance. Again, globally headquartered. Bell Textron. Headquartered famously. Well, some people might make fun of it, saying it's not really a state, but Rhode Island, America. Seeing a theme here? More than half of the contractors, from a manufacturing perspective, they're all headquartered here. I can't but wonder if we have remote shutoffs that could disable their manufacturing capabilities over there. Also, again, Justin Trudeau, in his true dictatorial form, disarmed a majority of Canadians. They're not allowed to own scary black rifles. He's so morally vacuous, he told them, oh yeah, you don't have a right to defend yourself here. So, I'm guessing the average Canadian isn't spending a lot of time practicing shooting. And they put a freeze on all firearm sales. So yeah, this is, again, if Joy Reid, she should do stand-up, because this is hilarious. I mean, again, just the citizens of Texas could probably invade successfully Canada. I'm not saying we should liberate that country of all the folks who are under the boot of Canadian leadership, but I'm saying the odds, statistically speaking, if I were a gambling man, I'd say the odds are in our favor. Now, this went pretty viral, got 1.3 million views and 12,000 likes, which is quite a few to say the least. One of the first comments comes from Gunther Eagleman, says, quote, Joy Reid is effing idiot. Okay, 9,000 likes. Paul Suzupa says, I'm not sure who's dumber, Don Lemon or Joy Reid. Gained 1.3 thousand likes. Owen Schroyer says, I predict that she'll go 0 to 2 on these predictions, gain 447 likes. Wright says, Joy Reid is a prime example of why the Department of Education is being shut down, getting 6.6 thousand likes. Yep. You also have Crazy Vibes says, garbage for your brain. It has pictures of all the major fast food companies and says, garbage for your body. Now all the major networks says, garbage for your brain, getting 847 likes. I Love American News says, so sad. It's a little Photoshop of Joy Reid sitting on a park bench. It says, just 16 cents a day could help this unemployed racist that MSNBC fired. Getting 1.2 thousand likes. She does look sad. Nevertheless, Crazy Vibe also says she's upset that Trump wears it better. Is a picture of her with her blonde wig and looks oddly reminiscent to Donald Trump. And it says emulation, the sincerest form of flattery, gained 477 likes. Let's see here. We also have Keith's Texas, a little biased, obviously going to read his comment. He also has a cool old meme from the things World War II. I forget the artist or the painter, but it's a very famous painting from World War II. He added text to make a meme. Now he, before the meme, says, quote, "This is an American citizen that would be bet on the other side of the military contract, tells you everything you need to know about them. Lemon and Reed are both pitiful." He says, quote, "How about rooting for America? For a change, you liberal scumbag." Gained 407 likes. Yeah, they don't do that. Mark says, "Go figure." Says Joy Reid said something stupid again. Get 840 likes. Ooh, infographics. This is credited to. Let's see. This infographic looks like it's credited to G0. Trying to see if I can pull up the fine print. Now they say active military members per 1,000. Canada is 1.9. Sorry, Canada 1.9. America is 4. Canada has 74 tanks compared to 4,657 American tanks. Canada has 375 aircraft. We have 13,206 aircrafts. Naval destroyers, Canada. I always think of Terrence and Phillip and South Park with their how they show Canada. We have 75 naval destroyers. They have 0. We have 11 aircraft carriers. They have 0. We have 64 submarines, and they have 4. Now they say this is from Geo0's political newsletters and G0media.com. And that's only, that's only the military aircraft that we know about. Again, I can't but think our government has a lot more gear than they tell us about. That got 987 likes. Also, I was going to say, they didn't bring up the fact of how many nukes do we have. I mean, granted, no one with the modicum of intelligence would ever use a nuclear weapon because of the age-old theory of the mutually assured destruction. Because as soon as you use it, your opponent will use it against you, so it's a no-win situation. So I'm not sure how much that metric realistically matters, as long as both sides have the capability, but they did omit that on that infographic, unfortunately. Let's see here. The comedian says, "You too could save an African child for only $1.25 a day." It's a picture of Joy Reid getting 944 likes. Yeah, I don't think anyone's believing Joy Reid anytime. A lot more statistics and breakdowns of how much, just the comical delta or difference between how much military gear we have versus they have. That's after Biden gave a lot of it away to Afghanistan and all the Taliban. We still have this much stuff. Like, yeah. And again, I don't think there's actually going to be a war against Canada. We're not going to invade them or liberate the oppressed people there. But it is comical to think Canada would stand a chance. But let me know in the comments. What do you think of my assessment? Do you think just the citizens of Texas could probably effectively take on, if not beat, the all Canadian military? Let me know in the comments, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Other interesting cultural news, you have attacks against Tesla vehicles increasing all over the world, which, again, also shows how mentally vacuous people are on the left, when people on the right didn't like the fact that Bud Light famously sponsored a transgender individual who had most of their individual content appealing to kids. We just didn't buy the crap. We peacefully protest. The antithesis is leftist. Again, not all Democrats, I'm saying leftists specifically. They riot in the streets and rob stores. In this case, they're destroying property of Tesla and the owners of Tesla vehicles. It also shows how mentally vacuous they are. Tesla has probably more cameras on the vehicle than a small business, which is good to capture all that data. And thankfully, the Department of Justice is actually prosecuting them, and some are on trial with up to a 20-year sentence, which I say throw the book at them, make an example, so people realize you actually have consequences for these bad actions. Now, this is first brought to our attention thanks to Eric Schmitt, in which he says, quote, "The Tesla attacks are getting worse. Arson, Molotov cocktails, bouts of gunfire. This isn't new. The left used the violence for a political tool for decades." Hashtag true, the George Floyd Summer of Love riots. $2 billion of property damage, multiple people dead, and Democrats basically let them off the hook. And in fact, Tim Walz and Kamala Harris paid to bail him out of jail in Minnesota. Again, in a state I refuse to pronounce properly, just as an additional slight to them. And he says, quote, "Only one thing can stop this," in the words of Pat Buchanan: "force rooted in justice and backed by moral courage." And here you can see, geez Louise, these things are totaled beyond all belief. So you see one of the Tesla sedans where it's been burnt to a crisp. You have a Tesla lot where you have multiple, again, this is also extremely unsafe for anyone around them because of how inherently dangerous lithium-ion batteries are. there's a reason, and they have all these, YouTube videos where if you crush a traditional nickel NiCad battery or nickel cadmium or traditional lead acid battery, it just squishes. I mean, lithium ion batteries explode. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons these are exploding left and right. So you see a couple of Cybertrucks are also melted a little bit and they're on fire. I mean, geez Louise. This got 0.1 million views and 29,000 likes. Now, scrolling down to his thread, he continues his commentary by saying, quote, since January 6, 2021, we've been fed the round-the-clock hysteria about domestic terrorism from the right. This is what the kids are called gaslighting. True. The truth is, since the 1960s, political violence has been overwhelmingly a product of the left. Reminiscent, remember the history class, the Weather Underground? Yeah, they have a long track record. Ironically, they call themselves the tolerant left. No, that's the ultimate example of the pot calling the kettle black, so to say. Eric continues saying, quote, make no mistake, this isn't just a few fringe radicals. Sure, there's the ones who are out there tossing Molotov cocktails in the streets, but the entire institutional left, from the media to the education system to the Democrat Party itself, includes to encourage, justify, and excuse it. True. A lot of the word on the street protests, or rather the word on the street interviews, they go to these people, and when they say, are you concerned this is getting violent? I mean, people, they're literally pushing, hitting other people. They're causing these businesses, billions of dollars damage. And they always say, this is a leftist, oh yeah, you have to respect the diversity of approaches. Diversity of tactics is what they say, which should horrify most folks. Now, he also says, quote, in 1971, speak of the devil, great minds think alike. In 1971, the Weather Underground, a far-right terrorist group, actually bombed the Capitol building, planted an explosive device in a ground floor bathroom. In 1983, another left-wing militant group called the Armed Resistance Unit detonated a bomb outside the Senate chamber. In 18 days from 1971 to 1972, we had 2,500 domestic bombings, more than 5 a day. Or these days, just an average day in Detroit. Nevertheless, but most Americans don't remember this. Why? Because the left controls the schools. True. The press, the whole system of organized culture, so it's been erased from our popular memory. Yep. He continues saying, quote, we've seen the same thing about the Tesla attacks today. Most respectable voices on the left won't go so far as to endorse the violence, of course, but they'll distract, equivalent, and soft pedal it. Yep, like that douchebag Jimmy Kimmel when he had that lame coy smile, which coy is a good word for Scrabble, but nevertheless, he said, oh yeah, please don't bomb the Teslas. And gives that, affirming look to the screen. Yeah. And he says, here's a textbook example of how it works, which, I'm sorry, I should put a visual disclaimer or an audio disclaimer. You may very well decrease your IQ points by watching this clip with CNN, but maybe it should be mildly entertaining nevertheless.
Like if you are attacking Teslas or dealerships, going beyond vandalism, that could be an act of domestic terrorism. But I do want to ask about this as resistance. Is this what resistance should look like?
So Trump thinks that if you try to kill cops to overthrow the government and change an election, that's not domestic terrorism, but somehow having a protest in front of a Tesla dealership is. The bottom line with Trump is freedom and liberties belong to people who agree with him, and that's it. That's his view of America. That's not a view that people who believe in our Constitution share.
And he also, another little banner note from the CNN, say, quote, Tesla hawks Tesla cars, says most should be penalized. Pull that down here. Let's see here, which actually has a little ADHD, nevertheless. A couple more comments from Mr. Eric Schmitt. He also says, they'll walk right up to the line, but always just enough plausible deniability. As Drain's leftists open fire on Tesla dealerships, which kind of ironic. When they say they don't want anyone to have guns, they just mean they don't want you to have guns. They love the government to have guns and do their bidding. He says they'll post articles titled Kill Tesla with a picture of burning cars and then claim that they were just talking about the boycott. Eric Schmitt says, but this is how the playbook always works. From the BLM riots to the mob harassment of the Supreme Court justices, to the assassination attempts against Brett Kavanaugh and Donald Trump, the violent radical arm of the left always gets the wink and nod from respectable liberals. In a healthy political system, this lawlessness would be equally unacceptable on both sides. It'd be good for America to have a Democratic Party that doesn't encourage, excuse, and make common cause with violent lefties, let alone actually bail BLM rioters out of jail. And here's a nice screenshot from Kamala Harris from 2020, in which she said, quote, if we're able to chip into the hashtag Minnesota Freedom Fund to help post bail for those protesting the grounds of Minnesota, which, again, peaceful protesters don't get arrested, I'd argue, a majority of the time. And when it does happen, obviously police get sued and they get compensated appropriately. Yeah, those weren't the people getting arrested. Yeah, remember when they actually firebombed a building in a police station in Minnesota, and the guy got a slap on the wrist because he was a radical leftist? Last note from Eric, he says, quote, "But that's not what we have. So we must respond with this new era of political violence with the full force of the law. The decade-long practice of calling leftist terrorists has been a disaster for our country. It taught the left that the tactics work." True. I 110% agree with him. One of the first comments comes from Paul Zupa, says, quote, "Life sentences will help getting 65 likes," which, yeah, it would. You also have B. Paul says, "Democrats have weaponized politics." There's a screenshot of some Antifa, some BLM protesters, Hamas protesters. It says Democrat Party militia is getting 794 likes. And Pomeroy, I think that's how I pronounce her name, Pomeroy. She says, quote, "Democrats used to burn crosses in the yards of blacks to intimidate them. Now the Democrats are burning Teslas in the owners' yards for the same reason. Nothing has changed about the Democrat Party in over a century. The tactics are still the same." Getting 521 likes. Well, taxes have gone up. That's not a tactic, but nevertheless. Savannah says, quote, "We have a serious problem. There are Democrat members of Congress openly calling for this domestic terrorism and violence, while seemingly no one is going to say anything about it. She's making videos about it." They have Representative Jasmine Crockett says, quote, "Representative Jasmine Crockett urges activists to, quote, quote, take down Tesla and Elon for her birthday. She's actively encouraging more arson shootings and vandalism at Tesla dealerships." Getting 647 likes. Ex-Citizen Journal says they always have the violent ones. It's the meme of the girl who's, smiling at the house on fire. And it says, "Democrats don't get their way." Democrat response, getting 293 likes, which, again, I would argue that's radical leftists. Not all Democrats are like that. Still, there's a concerningly high growing percentage. I would admit that. RK Gold, a little disappointed. It's not gold bar as a profile picture, but nevertheless, it says, quote, "I know that the FBI is on the case, but we're going to need to see very public investigations, perp walks, quick convictions, and harsh prison sentences. These types of attacks on Tesla or any other organization cannot be tolerated for a minute." Getting 306, it's going to get 307 likes. Yep. Let's see. I don't see any contrarian statements here. Now, don't get me wrong. Obviously, there's millions of people who are happy that, Tesla's being attacked like this and people are having their personal property destroyed. They don't realize their insurance rate is going to go up because of it. But nevertheless, those people aren't exactly using logic to their favor. So, thankfully, again, earlier this week, we found the Department of Justice is going after these malicious actors actively. Again, up to a 20-year prison sentence. We'll see how it actually, that's what they're pushing for. We'll see if it actually, that's their option, actually. I should clarify. We'll see if it actually comes to fruition when it comes to the court. But yeah, I think enough is enough. Can't keep tolerating all this radical violence, and hopefully puts an end to it. But as I always say, time should tell. And let me know your thoughts and comments, because I'd be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the political part podcast, you have a record number of people joining the military under the leadership of Pete Hegseth, as well as Donald J. Trump, which, looks, when you actually recruit the core demographics that are traditionally been part of your military, the numbers go up because you're appealing to, again, what was historically core who is joining the military. Now, this comes to us thanks to Lives at TikTok, in which she says, quote, "Trump highlights the record number of people signing up to join the military under Pete Hegseth's leadership. During the Biden administration, there's a record low recruitment, and the military continuously missed the recruiting goals. Make our military great again," unquote, which, yeah. Now, there is a statistical anomaly. I think it's partially because of the heritage of the organization, as well as having the great marketing, as well as the brotherhood. But the only branch of the U.S. military that has never missed the recruiting goals is the United States Marines. Also admire them. They're the only, of all the branches, they're the only one that actually is fiscally responsible in terms of tracking all their gear. They're the one that was able to pass their audit. Just kind of funny because some people pejoratively say Marines aren't as sharp as other divisions, and yet they're the one that can actually track all the gear that they use. So it is kind of funny. Now, here's someone's voice who's infinitely better than mine. Hear what Trump has to say here.
But I would like to ask Secretary Hegseth, who's doing a fantastic job. He's really been very inspiring in so many ways. And I must say that before he speaks, we have had record people wanting to join our military in the last 2.5 months, literally since this, I think probably since the election, November 5th, but especially since we came to office and since I announced Pete. He's young, he's smart, he's strong, he loves it, and they love him. But we've had record numbers of people wanting to join our military. Now, if you go back 6 months, it was the exact opposite. You had record numbers of people not wanting to join the military. Now you have record numbers of people wanting to be in our military. And that's a great honor. That shows you we're really on the right track. So, Pete, maybe say a few words.
Sure.
Please.
And that got only 91,000 views and 2.1 thousand likes. But I think it's very significant because, again, the U.S. needs a strong military. And for years, it's been getting weaker and weaker and more anemic. So thankfully, we're starting to see it become more robust. I can't but think the standards will also increase. One of the ways they were moving the numbers around in terms of trying not to look as bad was they would decrease the standards all the time to get more recruits to join and actually, to be a part of the military, though temporarily, because a lot of them would flunk out or, they're meeting the test goals, they're passing the test, but in terms of long-term viability as, a member of the military, they're just kind of flaking out. Now, some of the top comments include, especially handsome and brilliant. So I'll read this one. It's me, the Topping Show. I say, America is healing, getting 1 like. I would argue it's the best like. Or Trump would say, it's all about the quality over the quantity. That's the best like, bar none. I don't know who it was, but they're the best. I'll have to check the phone. You also have Paul Zupas and go, imagine that. Remove the wokeness and everything gets better. Getting 27 likes. John says, strong military that hopefully won't have to use. You have a bunch of voters that are going for America first, and the other booth is labeled War with Iran, getting 9 likes. That is something I do suspect will be a variable in terms of increasing recruitment. And again, obviously we have the Border Patrol. There's a special division for that purpose. But I know a lot of my friends, like growing up, some of my friends did, take up the calling and they joined the military, and I have the utmost respect for them. Some friends who were on the fence about it, one of the biggest points of contention was the fact that, a lot of our military is going halfway across the globe to places you couldn't point to on a map. And it was harder to show that direct correlation to protecting Americans. Now, I know that's a kind of a big debate in and of itself in terms of the war on terror, keep the global stabilization. But that was one of the reasons so many of my friends kind of felt dissuaded. Like, why would I need to go all the way over there? If the military's number one goal is protecting our border, then don't forget about those, those sneaking Canadians on the northern border. I think the participation rate and the adoption rate of people joining the U.S. military would also increase if they could have that direct line of sight of where we are actually protecting America. Again, I know global stabilization is an important factor, an important thing for the military to do. It also stabilizes the global economy, global trade. I understand those theories. But in terms of direct correlation of seeing your job and having a different type of feeling and accomplishment, I think that could also increase the military numbers. Though if you think differently, obviously, let me know in the comments. Wade Miller says, quote, turns out a lot of patriots weren't willing to join the military under a woke anti-American regime, getting 11 likes. Yeah, that's true. Let's see. The Department of Deportation, all these specific profile names, this quote, you mean jogging with troops is more inspiring than having a weird COVID mask, getting 2 likes. Reeling says, no more of this. Is who's that guy? Was it Rachel Levine, the general who is a man who transitioned to be a woman, who inspired 18 people to join the military, approximately. So yeah, great news about the U.S. military growing, and it will be interesting to see how many fiscal quarters or how many quarters of the year we can keep that going in terms of the increased recruitment rate. And let me know, why do you think is the number one reason we're having those numbers go up? As always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the business blunder of the day, you have Segway having a recall for their little 9bots, or as I call them, glorified Razor scooters with motors. But nevertheless, they have a fancy name. This comes to us thanks to the United States Consumer Product Safety Commission, which perhaps is the only useful government website I've seen in a decade. Nevertheless, they say, quote, Segway recalls Segway 9bot Max G30P and Max G30LP. Which, again, with marketing, those names are boring and forgetful to say the least, but nevertheless, they say kick scooters due to falling hazard and risk of serious injury. Whoops. There you can see the little 9bot scooter there, which not great for my friends because a lot of folks, if you go to the track or the circuit track courses, they're pretty big. So usually you have your scooter by your RV and they'll scooter along the whole place a lot faster than walking. But this old soul just walks because, I got legs. I can do it. Nevertheless, there you can see the recalled Segway Max. Fancy looking. Now, they note that, this has affected quite a few units. This affects 220,000 units, which not great because that's going to add up in cost, especially in the aggregate with all those repairs. Now they say, quote, the folding mechanism can fail and cause the handlebars to stem or fold while the scooter is in use. Now they have to clarify because it's a government website, which could pose injury. Which, yes, thank you, government, for explaining that and spelling it out for us. Jeez Louise. Now, they say, quote, the recall involves all Segway 9bot G30P and G30BL Max scooters. The model number is located on the label on the underside of the foot deck. The Max 330P is 46 inches long, 19 inches wide. Jeez Louise. Pretty wide. 47 inches high and weighs 42 pounds. It's heavy. The Max G30LP model is 44 inches long, 19 inches wide, and 45 inches high and weighs 39 pounds. They note that customers should immediately stop using the recalled scooters and contact Segway to receive information to determine whether the flooding mechanism needs adjustment to receive a free maintenance kit. The kit includes tools and instructions for checking and tightening the flooding mechanisms and keeping it properly maintained, which, again, in terms of trying to keep this cost down so they don't, go bankrupt or go in the negative on these things, you just know those crappy tools are going to be on par with IKEA tools, which I have a theory they just give those to people to piss them off. I mean, when you're selling IKEA furniture, which I don't, I make my own, but yeah, isn't the biggest point of contention having to use those crappy little tools that I would argue cause more frustration than actually anything else? But I partially digress. Now, unfortunately, they didn't get ahead of this recall. It turns out Segway has received 68 reports of folding mechanisms failing, including 20 injuries that include abrasions, bruises, lacerations, and broken bones. Because again, these things go pretty quick. They got a lot of get up and go to them. They're not the racer scooters we had back in my day, which cost a pretty penny, but there ain't no motor on those. It's magical. It folded. It looked cool, but no, you had to push those scooters back in my day. I tell you what. Now these are sold at Best Buy, which I can't fathom. They're still somehow in business, but nevertheless, they're sold at Best Buy, Costco, Walmart, Target, and Sam's Club nationwide and online at Segway.com and Amazon.com from January 2020 to February 2025 for between, $600 and $1,000, which not great. Jeez Louise. I was about to say that's the price of a used car on Craigslist, but inflation has made that, the days of getting a used, old beater car that cheap are unfortunately pretty rare and long gone. Now, they also know that these are manufactured in, well, every time I see that word, I can't but hear his voice. They're manufactured in China, as well as Malaysia. The recall number is 25-193 and 25-193. And yeah, for a company that charges $600 to $1,000 for these toys, I can't, that'd be pretty irate if I was an owner, especially because, again, in terms of the design of these things, there's only a couple key failure points where you need to reinforce the structure and make sure it's ultra safe. And quite literally the main mechanism, they didn't put an extra effort into making sure it wasn't cheap pop metal or something to that effect. So you gotta say, a Segway having a recall of one of your most popular products, gotta say you're certainly the business blunder of the day. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Again, trying to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the month. So if you can click that button, I greatly appreciate it. Also, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or comment. It's a great way to give me some additional feedback, letting me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.